Hey everyone. Whether you use Tinder or Bumble or Hinge or any of the other online dating apps that are taking the world by storm, you've undoubtedly come across the problem of suddenly running out of matches. It's like all of a sudden it doesn't want to match with you anymore. All of a sudden it's either there's no women in your area or you swipe on women and where you used to get matches you don't get any anymore. And it's easy to curse out Tinder or Bumble or any of the other apps and say that they're just ripping guys off and that they're doing something horrible and try to force people to pay money. But over the last few months, I've been releasing a lot of videos explaining what's really going on, the mathematics behind these apps and why they're actually somewhat stuck with certain parameters that they can't easily work around. You know, for example, there's just so many more men on these apps than women, so that creates a problem. And then you've got the fact that men swipe more aggressively than women, and there's all these factors that start to come into play with these online dating apps that isn't immediately obvious at first. And today what I'm going to bring you is a completely new way in which if you're finding that you're suddenly getting no more matches, there's a new thing to look out for that you can actually work around, that you can fix. But if you don't know that it's there and if you don't know that it's happening, you won't know how to fix it. So if you're stuck in that rut, suddenly getting no more matches, keep watching. So I do a lot of testing on Tinder. I mean, a lot. Like I've got multiple Tinder accounts running all the time, testing different people, different cities, different genders, different sexual orientations, just discovering how Tinder works behind the scenes. And you know, right now, as I sit here talking to you, I'm in the Gold Coast, which is an area north of Sydney, in a different state in Australia. And it's a relatively small city. And I was doing a fair bit of testing around here. And I discovered that this phenomenon that I was coming across, which is my profiles would do really well for a week. Now, profiles that I know rank really high. I should say that first of all. Like, these are profiles that consistently everywhere in the world get a really high ranking. Women like it, women match with it, and all that kind of stuff. So this, I don't believe what's happening here is, ranking score degradation, which is something that can happen easily to guys on Tinder. But I noticed that after a week and a half, all of a sudden, I'd be swiping on women, but no one would be matching back with me anymore, or very few. There would be some, but it would drop off dramatically. And it was like there was nothing that I could do to my profile, and I have a lot of tricks up my sleeve that would change that. So I spent a little bit of time thinking about what this could be. And like I so often do, I turned to maths, and I did a little bit of back of the envelope calculating. And so what I did was, first of all, I thought, okay, I'm in the city of Gold Coast, and I thought, what's the population here? So these are the figures that I started to go through. So Gold Coast has a population of about 500,000, which makes it not a tiny city, but not a particularly big one. Now, I went through some census data, and I found that roughly 13.8 of all Australians are aged between 20 and 30. So that means in the Gold Coast, there are roughly 69,000 people aged between 20 and 30. Now, half of them, give or take, are women. So that means that there are 34,500 women aged between 20 and 30. Now, it was a little bit hard to work out how many of those women were likely to be single. So I looked at a bunch of different census data. I couldn't find super modern census data. I found 2010. I found 1999. But I tried to take the newer census data as much as I could. And it seems that around 40% of women aged between 20 and 30 are single. So that means that there are 13,800 single girls aged between 20 and 30 in the Gold Coast. Right, now we're getting somewhere. Now, while single women use Tinder frequently, it appears as though at any one point in time, there's only about 10 to 15% of single women are actually actively using it in your area. So that means that in a city of 500,000 people, city like Gold Coast, there's roughly only 1,380 women using it actively at that general period of time. Now, I know that these figures aren't perfect. Obviously, for example, there are going to be plenty of women who are in relationships who are on Tinder. There's lots of little variables in there, but the basic concept, I think, is going to be clear when you think about this. If there's only 1,380 women on Tinder, how long do you think it's going to take for the majority of them to have seen your profile? How long do you think it's going to take you to get through that 1,380 women, right? For example, if you swipe 100 women a day, which isn't a lot, right? You're going to be swiping left on plenty, right on a few. In maybe sort of under 20 days, less than a month, you're going to have swiped on every woman who's actively using Tinder right now. Then what happens? So what happens then is you've swiped through every woman who's actively using it. Now what Tinder's showing you is the women who haven't been on recently any time, right? So you're still seeing women's profiles. They've still got an active profile, but maybe they haven't been on in a couple of weeks. So what's the likelihood that they're going to be on anytime soon? So you're looking at these profiles, swiping on them, thinking, hey, well, some of them should match with me. But actually, you've been through most of all the ones that are active, and it's only occasionally that new girls jump on, right, and sign up, and then you see their profile. But does that make sense? The quality of your pool of women that you're swiping now has degraded significantly. Right. So then you think, all right, so what I'll do then is I'll reset my profile. Because if I reset my profile, everyone's going to see my picture again. Fantastic. But there's a problem. See, a lot of women, if they've matched with you once before, they're likely to swipe left. Some will swipe right again, but many of them will swipe left now. So, and all the women who swiped left on you last time are probably likely to swipe left on you again. So what happens now is that once you reset your profile and it shows your profile again, your photos to all women again, it's looking to Tinder as though you have a low quality profile because a lot of those women are now swiping left that would have otherwise swiped right or once upon a time did swipe right on you. So now you have what Tinder thinks is a low quality profile with a low ranking on its hands. And so it'll penalize you as a result. If I go back to my home city where I do all my coaching in Sydney, which is 5 million people, it's a city that's 10 times the size, this is less of a problem because it's a 5 million people, which means you've now got, 13,000 women online actively using it at any one time. But still, what I do see is I see with a lot of guys, especially the guys who use Tinder a lot, like the super users who are using a lot of Tinder Gold, they're using a lot of Tinder Boosts, and they are getting seen by a large majority of the women really quite quickly because, women are using, if they're going to be active users, they're going to be using it a few times a week at least. And so if you're using Boosts and if you've got Tinder Gold, those women, you're going to be towards the front of that queue and women are going to be seeing you a lot. So yeah, close to all of those women are still going to see you in relatively short order. And when you reset your profile, yes, the impact, the penalty for, women who have already matched with you, less likely to match with you again, that penalty would be less just because there's such a large volume of women. But it's still going to be there. So you might now pay a 10% penalty every time you reset your profile, just because, women aren't going to right swipe on you again. And yeah, so this is it's a problem that isn't Tinder's fault. It's just an artifact of, the way online dating works. You're seeing so many women and so many women are seeing you in such a short period of time that, right, you're going to burn through most of the women in your city unless you live in massive cities. So what's the solution? How are we going to work around this? Well, the solution actually is not as tricky as it sounds. The biggest thing you need to think about doing is if you feel like this has happened to you, you're going to need to completely revamp your profile. I mean, change the majority, change 80% of your photos so that all of them are looking different. Because women aren't going to recognize your face so much. They're not going to recognize that as easily. Some will, but most won't. What they're going to recognize is the photos, right? You're going to recognize the context of the photos. And so if you radically change your whole profile, different photos, different, what you're going to find is a couple of things. First of all, women who have matched before but you never really communicated with, they may well match again because they're not going to recognize you. But also women who didn't like your last profile may like this profile now. So your new profile is going to appeal to a different demographic of the same women in the same area. So that's how I've worked around it. And I've done that with a number of my tests now. I've realized that if I wanted to run a test in a small city with the same guy, just use a totally different set of photos. And Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, you'll start to get a whole heap of matches again. So I hope you've really enjoyed this little trick. I mean, there's so much that you can do. When you understand the inner workings of how Tinder works, there's so much that you can do. I've got an online program called the School of Tinder, which you've probably heard of before if you've seen my channel before. But if you haven't, basically, School of Tinder is a complete end-to-end program where I'm going to show you exactly how to choose ideal photos to get women to actually want to swipe right on you, how to write profiles that women are going to be attracted to. They're going to think, this is the kind of man I'd like to meet up with. How to write messages to women so that they're going to want to actually get in contact with you and reply back. And how to turn those interactions into dates. Because there are a whole lot of points on the Tinder process that guys get really frustrated, right? First of all, you get no matches, then you get matches, but no one talks to you. Then women communicate, they flake on dates. It's frustrating, but it's actually not hard when you know how. Now, the School of Tinder is an completely online video program. I'm going to take you through step by step and hold your hand along the way. Go ahead and check that out right now. I'm running a special for the next week. I've been on holidays for a few weeks, so I'm running a couple of specials just to get guys back into the program. Throw a link up here and down in the comments below. Check that out. As always, guys, has this happened to you? Have you had experienced something similar to this? Let me know in the comments below. Is there another way in which you've gotten caught on the Tinder treadmill, something that's gone wrong and caused you not to get matches that I haven't talked about before? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And as always, if you've liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click the little bell icon so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. I'm Damien. Have a fantastic week. Take care.